Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Gut health is so important for our overall health, and it affects way more than you'd probably think. From our skin, to our mood, to our immune system, and so many things in between. I believe our health really starts in the gut, and likewise, our illness and disease can also start in the gut. And so it's super duper important that we're nourishing our gut and making sure that our digestive system is working properly. Before we jump into today's interview, I wanted to make a quick announcement. If you haven't seen on my website, I am hosting an 8-day wellness retreat in Tuscany, Italy from July 14th through the 21st. It's 8 days of nutrition classes, cooking classes, yoga. We have plant-based meals all day, every day, and excursions. There's a saltwater pool. And it's going to be just a really fun and informative 8 days that are going to help you lose weight, master your metabolism, and really just get more confident in your skin and trusting and understanding your body, as well as also feeling more confident in the kitchen and knowing exactly what to eat for your unique body. So if you need a little kickstart and guidance on your health journey, I would love to help you out. I'd love to have you on the trip. So you can find more details for that on mariamarlowe.com. Today's guest is Jamie Morea, who is the co-founder of Hyperbiotics, which is a probiotic company. Now, there are so many different probiotics on the market, but I have personally found Hyperbiotics to truly be the most effective one I've ever tried, and I've ever had my clients try as well. I discovered Hyperbiotics about a year ago when I was dealing with my own digestive issues. It was right around my book launch time, and I was super duper stressed, and that was just really throwing my entire digestive system off. Excuse the TMI, but I was very bloated and constipated, just not regular, which I always am. And so I was like, okay, I need to do something. And so I was just researching. There had been probiotics that I'd used previously, but I didn't really find them very effective. And so I had read about Hyperbiotics. They seemed pretty awesome from what I could read, and tried them and was really blown away. Literally within 3 days, my digestive symptoms markedly improved. My bloating disappeared. Everything was back to normal, and I was just blown away by the results. I ended up contacting the company. I wanted to learn more, really digging into their research and the strains that they use and just their delivery method, all the things that made them so effective. In fact, they're 15 times more effective than the traditional probiotic capsule. I also became interested in the founder's story because she doesn't come from a traditional science background, but rather her story is that she became really ill with parasites and could not, for the life of her, get better. She would get better and then she'd get worse, and her illness really just lingered for a very long time. And she finally said enough is enough, and she set out to find a way to heal herself. In doing so, she was able to rally together a team that was able to create a probiotic that is 15 times more effective than any of the other ones currently on the market. And because she was an outsider, she really was able to push the envelope and think outside of the box in order to make a probiotic that actually really, really works and is really, really effective. We're going to be talking about, of course, the microbiome and gut health, probiotics. She's also particularly interested in the health and gut health of mothers and children and how the mother's microbiome actually affects the child's microbiome. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the microbiome in our mouth, which I think people forget or don't realize that we have, but our microbiome is not limited just to our gut. We have microbiomes in all different areas of our body, our skin, our reproductive organs, and the mouth is really, I think, the next frontier that we're going to be hearing more about. If after listening to the podcast you want to try them, Jamie has so graciously offered 20% off to everyone listening to the podcast. You can just use the code HYPERMARIA on hyperbiotics.com. If you've been struggling with digestive issues, I highly recommend them and definitely think they're worth a try. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Jamie. Jamie, can you share a little bit of your story about what inspired you to start Hyperbiotics?
Yeah, totally. I was traveling with my husband, and we had traveled to a friend's wedding in Guatemala, and then we went to Thailand. And on that plane ride, I started to get really sick, and I just got sicker and sicker and sicker. And my stomach was incredibly bloated, and I was so fatigued that I couldn't function in the day, and I was really nauseous. And we didn't know what was going on. We thought, maybe I ate something or, who knows. And then it just didn't go away. We were trying to see specialists and sending samples of everything from every part of your body to try to figure out what was going on with me. And finally, after 7 months, we were able to get a diagnosis that I had E. histolytica, which is a parasite. And that experience and that I was in bed, but I couldn't even make a phone call. Like I was just I didn't have my personality. I was just in this state of fog. And I remember I would scroll and look on Facebook and see people doing fun things and looking nice and think, how do they have the energy to wash their hair? It was just such a dark time. And the only thing I could do was try to figure out what was wrong with me. And every ounce of energy I had that's where I put it. So I started to research a lot, and I started to learn about the microbiome and gut health. And, we knew it was something digestive. It just had to be. And I started to understand how a lot of my own background and upbringing could have contributed to a weak microbiome or bad gut health. And, I hadn't been breastfed as a child, and I had been on, the 80s diet of convenience that was like canned vegetables and cakes and, sugary things, and really didn't have real food much growing up. And then I got recurrent ear infections and strep throat. And actually in my early 20s, I was having strep throat so frequently that it was like every 6 to 8 weeks. And then I got my tonsils removed, and it all started to make sense because I had been on so many rounds of antibiotics. And so I started to put the pieces together of how my system was so compromised. Still didn't have a solution on how to fix it at that point. But then once we discovered that it was a parasite, then I started to switch gears and focus on a solution, and really devoured all of the latest research on the microbiome because it's such a new field, and started to learn that there's actually something we can do about it. And one thing led to another, and just wanted to share that information. One, about the lifestyle, because I didn't know that I could make different lifestyle choices and that they would have such a dramatic and profound impact on my health. So as I learned that information, and then, whether I was talking to my aunt or my friend or whoever, I just had this overwhelming desire to tell them, don't put that in your mouth, or, you don't really need these antibiotics. I know that you just got them prescribed, but are you sure that it's not viral? Like maybe we should wait a few days, or, just different things. So it was just this desire to share that information. And at that point, the microbiome was relatively new and the research was very scientific. And so making it actionable and tangible, and for the average person to understand what that means, is really important to me. So part of our company, as you know, is that we have a blog, and we have so many articles and resources that take all of this complex information and turn it into tangible, actionable steps that any individual can take to change their own life. So there's that component, and then also obviously offering a solution in the form of probiotic supplementation.
So I love that this company started out of a need, right? It didn't become because this was trendy or, the next big thing. This came because you were sick and you needed to find a solution. And
I actually had parasites myself a few years ago, and I know it was a different one than yours, but it is absolutely miserable. And you would do anything to make it go away. So I totally get that. But what I find fascinating is that you then created this product, right, to solve a need to, support the microbiome. And there are so many supplement companies that have been around for decades. And I've never really had a probiotic that is as effective as the hyperbiotics. So how did you create this? Like, how did you go about doing this?
Right. Well, I'm definitely not a microbiologist, but as I was researching and learning, because I had become sort of health conscious before I got sick. So I had, taken probiotics a couple of times and knew enough. So I thought. But then as I started to really dig deep, I started to learn one of the key things is a diversity of strains, because we have thousands of strains in our gut. So if we're supplementing with, just acidophilus, that just is not nearly as powerful as if we're supplementing with 12, 13, 14, 15 strains. So as I learned that, I realized, okay, I need to look for a probiotic that meets a variety of needs. And then I also started to learn how common it is that the probiotics on the shelf are not even alive. They were alive when they were manufactured, but then they, whether they were in transit on a hot truck or they were sitting on the shelf and not refrigerated, because they're so fragile, these organisms, that if they're not alive when you take them, obviously you don't get any benefits. And then the other thing is that they also have to be able to survive your stomach acids. And they're not very hardy, these organisms. So the pH of your stomach acids can wipe them out. So those are, some pretty significant challenges. And we actually worked with a team of microbiologists to figure out how to survive these challenges. And that's what we've been able to do. We use a patented manufacturing process that protects the organism. So they're tableted, so the organisms aren't exposed to air and moisture like they would be in a veggie cap. So, and they're frozen at really high temperatures right away, and that extends the shelf life without you needing to refrigerate them. And then we also use a patented delivery system that's a time-release delivery. So instead of the probiotics being released at the top of your digestive tract, where then they encounter all of your stomach acids, they're released over an 8 to 10 hour window so that they can bypass those and actually make it deep inside your digestive tract still alive. So basically, we worked with a team of experts because we're not experts. But that said, because we are not from the industry, I'm referring to myself and my husband, we asked different questions. We didn't operate, I guess, within the confines of the box that the supplement industry tends to operate in. We would say, well, if this is good and this is good, why can't you do them together? They'll kind of look at each other. Well, guess we could try that. So we came at it from a different angle, because we came at it from, instead of how to regurgitate the same products that we've all been making for the last years, we came at it from, how do we make something that's going to work because I want it for myself? And the result was a more effective probiotic. So it paid off.
I love that. I mean, and sometimes you need to come at it with a totally fresh mind. And it's actually better not to be the expert in some case, because you are going to ask the questions that no one else is asking, or you're going to think you can do things that everyone else thinks that you can't do, right? Because they, for so long, I mean, even myself, I've been telling people you have to buy a probiotic that is refrigerated, because if it's not refrigerated, then it's not going to be alive. It's not going to be effective. And now you've created a probiotic that is shelf stable and is extremely effective. So, all of these things that we used to think, oh, this is the only way, you came out with fresh eyes and said, no, there can be a different way. So I love that. And you touched a little bit on this before, but one thing that I find interesting is that a lot of people don't know they have digestive issues because it happens so commonly. So, for example, you had a parasite, so you were probably deathly ill, violently sick very often. So you knew something was wrong. But a lot of times people will come to me and they'll be like, I'm bloated or gassy all the time, but I'm just a gassy person. Or I only go to the bathroom, a couple times a week, but I've always only went to the bathroom a couple times a week, so it's normal. But these things actually, in fact, are not normal. So what are some things that people may be doing that they don't even realize could be compromising their microbiome and, disrupting their digestion?
Right. Okay. This list might take me a while.
Because there's a lot of things I know.
Yeah. But it is true that we're so often so used to operating at below optimal that we don't even know what it's like to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that because this research is so new, our modern lifestyles haven't taken it into account. So we've been operating in a paradigm, for the last 80 years, and we've developed our culture, the way we live and the choices we make based on that. And now we know that paradigm is not correct. So there are a lot of things in our modern worlds that disrupt our microbiome. I think the one that and you'll agree with this, that we have the most control over, but that is the most unfortunate and still, even today, misunderstood is our diet. Processed foods, sugar, gluten, not enough whole plant-based foods and fibers. Our ancestors, they had much more diverse microbiomes than we do. And when it comes to gut health, diversity is the key. And they consumed 50 to 100 grams of prebiotic fiber every day. And most of us struggle to get 25 grams of fiber in our diets every day. It's just because they were eating real whole food.
I think it's so funny now with that, yes, the guidelines suggest like 25 grams of fiber, and people are like scared to eat more fiber than that because they're like, oh, it's too much fiber. And it's like, no, actually,
right.
It's not enough fiber, actually.
Right.
25 grams. Yeah.
Right, totally. It's amazing how void of nutrients most of our food items are. So diet, that's the number one thing that we can take steps to change. But then we are taking antibiotics when we're not needing them. And antibiotics are even in our food supply. So, if farm-raised fish or if you don't pay attention to your dairy or meat supply, then you could be exposed to antibiotics there as well. Even things like chlorinated water in your home, swimming pools, etc. And then there's toxins that we have in our cleaning supplies, candles, perfumes, personal care items. There's pollution and not enough exposure to the outdoors. Even the construction of our houses are so airtight now that we're not living where we're getting exposure on a daily basis to the microbes from the outside. There are studies that show that children who live near a forest, even if they live in a condo building and don't actually go to the forest, are healthier than children who just live in the city. So, those organisms in the outdoors are really important. And most of our lives are now lived indoors, and our construction is so good that our homes are airtight. So we're creating this ecosystem that's an indoor ecosystem that's not living in harmony with what's outside. And then, of course, we're also very overzealous in our hygiene practices. So we're, sterilizing everything, antimicrobial, antibacterial. I even saw a packet of underwear that were antimicrobial. It's crazy. And then we're also more sedentary. So sleep is kind of a two-way street. The better your gut health, the better you sleep. And the better you sleep, the better your gut health. And the same goes with exercise. And then we're quite stressed, and stress depletes our good bacteria, as well as the natural aging process. So there's just a ton of things that if you're not aware of it, and if you just kind of live on default according to what the standard is in our modern world, then you're really not living in harmony with your microbes.
Right. It basically sounds like the modern human has everything against them, right?
Totally.
The way that our lives are set up.
Right. And it's fair because this information is new and we haven't caught up yet. But we don't have to wait 30 years until the norm is to live in harmony with our microbes. You can take steps to do that today and benefit from it.
Right. So cleaning up our diet, limiting our stress, avoiding some of these chemicals, and whether it's in our cleaning products and our scented candles. So what are some of the main steps people can take to limit the harm to their microbiome?
Sure. I would say diet is number one. And, you just have to make the decision to go upstream often with diet and to make choices that are healthy, even if it's not the norm. And then in regard to antibiotics, just becoming extra savvy and knowing, antibiotics are incredible. They are so powerful, and they do save our lives over and over, but knowing when it's a life-saving chance to take them and when it's not necessary. And then, the source of your food is important, avoiding pesticides and farm-raised items that could have antibiotics or hormones in them. And then making more natural choices in your personal care products, in your cleaning supplies, in your fragrance choices, things like that. And then spending time outside is really important. Spending time outside also helps lower your stress levels. So you get 2 in 1 with that one. And really, it's common sense, but prioritizing sleep, being active, and managing your stress levels. Really, if you were to step back and think just logically, what would I have to do to be a healthy, happy, whole person? It's really, take care of yourself. Manage your stress levels, whether that's yoga, meditation, go for a run, sleep enough, give your body the sleep it needs, and be active and eat well. And really, just by doing those things and having this awareness, then you start to prioritize your gut health, and it's pretty incredible the results that can have on your overall health.
So let's say someone starts cleaning up their diet, cleaning up their lifestyle, living a more gut-friendly diet and lifestyle. What, beyond just digestive health, what other benefits can people see?
Oh, there's so many. Well, you would get sick less often because your 80% of your immune system is in your gut. So by having a healthy gut, then you're going to optimize your immune system. You would have more energy, better digestion, obviously, better sleep. You would actually absorb more of the nutrients from your food and vitamins. If you think about how much money you're spending on healthy food and supplements, and that you could actually get more bang for your buck by absorbing more of them, it's a pretty good, it's a win-win. You would also have better skin, less brain fog, more mental clarity. Gut health is connected to our emotional life. So you would have more stable emotions. You would have better memory. There's your body weight. I don't know if you've read the studies, but there's some really amazing research on the connection between our weight and our gut health. I actually saw there was a probiotic conference a year ago, and one of the speakers gave a map of the US, and the map showed the rates of antibiotic prescriptions. And the areas in dark red had the highest antibiotics prescribed. And then he overlaid on top of that the map of obesity in the US, and it was almost identical.
Wow. That was probably pretty shocking to see it so visually like that, but it seems like it makes sense, right? Because we know that our gut health is associated with our weight, and we also know that taking antibiotics is associated with negatively affecting our microbiome, to the point where now very often doctors will also prescribe or tell patients to take a probiotic when or right after they take antibiotics.
It's fascinating. Well, they give antibiotics to livestock to help fatten them up. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think that's something people don't realize, is that they do typically, like on a conventional farm, they use antibiotics to fatten the animals, which is kind of crazy. They're just constantly giving it to them. It's like a subtherapeutic dose. So yeah, it's pretty scary. Growing up, whenever you go to the doctor, if you have a cold or the flu, they want to prescribe you an antibiotic. And you're like, at the time you're taking it because it's like, that's what your doctor tells you to do. But cold or flu is not a bacteria, it's a virus. So an antibiotic is really not the best thing for that.
And I think it's, about liability too, because if I prescribe an antibiotic and it was bacterial and you had a complication, you can't sue me because so it's understandable why. And then physicians are just in the habit now too, because we've done it for so long. They're starting to wake up though and change things. but you can take responsibility for yourself and not put that responsibility on your physician as well.
Yeah. Obviously having a healthy microbiome is important for everyone, but I know you're particularly passionate about the health of a woman that's going to have a baby, an expecting mom, and also children. So, and I think sometimes we'll think, oh, okay, we need to take a probiotic. I think everyone at this point knows what a probiotic is and they're comfortable taking it, but I guess people don't really think about it for their kids, or think about, when I'm pregnant, okay, I need to be really cognizant. So why during these stages of life is it so important?
Well, it's interesting because what we've learned is that much of a person's microbiome is actually inherited from their mother. During pregnancy, during the birth process, passing through the vaginal canal and through breast milk, even skin to skin contact and kisses, that's how we're transferring the microbes from the mother to the child. So when you look at it that way, you start to understand why, if your child's microbial inheritance is up to you, then your gut health is obviously very important. That's why there are more health issues associated with babies born via cesarean or who weren't breastfed. Even, babies born via cesarean are the bacteria that often colonizes on them is what's found in the operating room, as opposed to what's in the vaginal canal.
Well, I've heard they're now, they're actually wiping the mother's fluids on C-section born babies.
They are. And there was this big movement, and now there's a little bit of pushback because, again, with liability, what if the mother has an infection and then they wipe that onto the child, which is kind of crazy because if they went through the vaginal canal, the risk is so low, but the basis for any type of liability, but the benefits far, far outweigh the risks. So, if you're pregnant and you do end up needing to have a cesarean, I would say find a practitioner in advance, obviously, that believes in vaginal swabbing because it's so important. There's a documentary, I don't know if you've seen it, called Microbirth, that really looks at this and looks at the correlation between cesareans and the health issues later in life, and it's all because the microbiome isn't properly developed. And that's the reason I feel so strongly about it, because I feel like if we can educate mothers on the reason why these choices are important, that it's the fastest route to impacting health in millions of people. Now, with that said, I have all of this knowledge, and my first child, my water broke at 27 weeks, and it was a super emergency. I had a cesarean, but because I had this knowledge, I also was able to make choices to minimize the damage. And he's 2.5 now, and he's incredibly healthy. He's still breastfeeding. I took a lot of probiotics. I gave him probiotics as a baby. We, made sure he had lots of exposure to dirt, animals, the outdoors. We let him put pretty much everything in his mouth. We cleaned our house with vinegar, so he could eat off the floor if he wanted. And then obviously his diet, we made sure that he had exposure to a large variety of whole foods. And, given the way he was born and what he went through, the statistics show that he should not be nearly as healthy as he is. But he has never been sick. He's never had to, he's had colds and things, but he's never had to go to the doctor because he's sick. He's not had to have antibiotics because it's often a vicious cycle, right? One round of antibiotics weakens your system. It actually takes up to a year in an adult whose microbiome is already formed for it to rebound. So that's why you have antibiotics, and then you're more likely to get sick again, and you have more antibiotics, and before you know it, you're having 8 courses of antibiotics a year. So if you can stop that cycle before it starts, then you don't end up with a child who's always sick, and that affects so much of their future and their life. Another thing that's interesting is that the microbiome of a child, it matures around the age of 3. It starts to resemble what it will look like as an adult. So your efforts between 0 and 3, or actually in utero to 3, are that's the time that they're going to yield the greatest results. So that's the time to really make sure you're making wise choices.
So I don't know if you still have it on your site. You had the that quiz that sort of tells you what's the best probiotic for you. And I remember answering some of the questions, and one of them was, were you breastfed? And I guess I had just assumed that I was, because I was like, well, why wouldn't I be? Because I feel like there's so much education now in this day and age about the importance of it. But then I called my mom and asked her, and she's like, no, the doctors told me I didn't need to, so I didn't. You were important. And I was like, oh man. And it all started to make sense. And same thing. I was sick all of the time. I mean, I ate terrible processed food, so my immune system was bad to begin with. And then I was sick all the time, always on antibiotics. And it's just, this sort of vicious cycle that you get on, that you're kind of always sick or always repairing something.
Robin Chutkin, she has a book called Gut Bliss, and she's a physician there's a video, I don't remember the name of it, but basically was a conventional physician, and her daughter, she realized, I think her daughter was 6 or 7, and she realized she had been on 10 rounds of antibiotics that year, and said something has to change. And she started researching and basically changed her whole philosophy and successfully stopped the cycle in her daughter. And they, made a lot of lifestyle changes, and now she's an advocate for gut health. But it's a pretty powerful video. You just have to Google it, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. It's 2 things now I have to watch. It was microbirthing. Is that the other one?
Microbirth. It's
Microbirth.
Fantastic. They're actually making a new documentary right now, that the team that made that one, that discusses the lifestyle choices and the importance of them up until the age of 3. So it's kind of through toddlerhood.
Okay. Yeah. Now I've got to add these to my list. So switching gears a little bit from gut health, I want to talk about oral microbiome, because I think this is something people don't realize. So again, I think now it's really popular and people understand we have a microbiome in our gut, but we also have a microbiome in our mouth. And I think the way that traditionally we've thought about, getting rid of bad breath or cleaning our teeth is killing all of the bacteria in there, right? Like you see mouthwash is like 99.9% of bacteria killed with this mouthwash. So you've created 2 products, activated charcoal probiotic toothpaste, and then a dental probiotic that you sort of like suck or chew on, which is, in my opinion, kind of revolutionary, because first of all, I've never even heard or saw a dental probiotic before. And with the toothpaste, we're so used to like these conventional toothpastes that have all these foaming agents, and they leave our mouth with this very strong flavor of mint or whatever, but maybe are actually hurting the bacteria in our mouth, right? Or hurting the microbiome in there. So can you talk a little bit about that and sort of how you came up with these products, why you came up with these products, and why is the microbiome in our mouth so important?
Definitely. It's a very new field, the oral microbiome, and it is mind-blowing indeed. If you think about it, your digestion starts in your mouth. So it makes sense that the bacteria that we have in your mouth would be very important to your overall microbial and gut health. And so many health conditions are actually linked to the state of your teeth and gums, like, for example, heart disease. And so it makes a lot of sense. As you said, we've spent the last, 50 years or so trying to eradicate all of our oral bacteria with toothpaste and mouthwash, which now we know actually makes it easier for the bad guys to multiply. The new paradigm, based on what we've learned recently, is that rather than kill them all, we need to reinforce the good guys in your mouth. And then through a competitive exclusion, they take care of the bad guys for you, and you actually create lasting change and lasting health. If you think about it, it is like an army that if you have enough good guys, there's just no room for the bad guys to get a foothold. So that's the way it works. And that's kind of the philosophy around it.
Yeah. And I found it, I love the dental probiotic. I think it's so cool, so interesting. And I do, like, I remember the first time I started using it back in August. And the first time, literally the first night I chewed on it before I went to bed. And I woke up and my mouth was just so clean. And usually, sometimes you wake up and your breath's it's not terrible, but it's not great. And, or, you have the white coating. It's very common to wake up with that white coating on your tongue. And usually I'll scrape that off. But I didn't even have it. And I don't even have it anymore. It doesn't even happen. So it's very effective. And yeah, I just think it's very interesting and a whole new way of dealing with oral health.
It's fascinating. And we actually have clinical studies that show that there's a kids one too that is actually geared toward dental and ENT health, because we have a clinical study that shows it reduces the occurrences of strep throat. But because your immune system, also your first line of defense, is in your mouth. So by having the right bacteria in your oral cavity, you're less likely to get upper respiratory sicknesses, including ear infections. It reduces the risk of ear infections. It also is clinically shown to reduce halitosis and to improve dental plaque scores. So it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by it. I'm actually publishing, I have 2 blog posts on it and sort of my before and after and my whole experience with switching up my oral care routine. And it's pretty amazing. I love it now. And I'm so like, I love the charcoal toothpaste because it takes a little while to get used to because you're just like, where's the foam? Or, and your mouth is like gray. But my teeth have never felt cleaner or whiter, and super effective stuff. A lot of people have these dramatic experiences like you do, like having the parasites, being sick and thinking, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if there was some solution for this? But a lot of times it just stops at the thoughts and people don't actually turn it into action. So from going from this thought or this idea into action is a huge, huge accomplishment. And I think a lot of times people get fear comes up, doubt comes up, it just kind of stops them dead in their tracks. So how were you able to get over that fear, get over that doubt? Maybe you didn't have any, I don't know. But how were you able to turn this idea into something? And what advice do you have for people who are maybe, have this idea, but like don't know where to start?
That's a really good question. I guess, after everything that I went through, it just felt like it was my obligation to share it with others. I sort of couldn't contain it. It's strange to say, but it's almost like I didn't have a choice but to spread the word. And I think, for me, when I was so sick, I didn't know if I would ever get better. I didn't know if I would have a new lease on life. So then when you get it, I guess your inhibitions fall to the wayside a little bit more than they would have prior to that happening to you. So I just felt, compelled to help facilitate the shift and to give others the information that I had gained about how to live in harmony with our microbes instead of being at war with them. And I think that feeling, that calling, I guess, overpowered the doubt or the fear that I had. Fears and inhibitions that I used to have just didn't matter as much anymore too. I think you just see life differently after that.
Yeah. And I love that you said that you felt like you almost didn't have a choice, right? It was just so clear to you.
It was so strong. Yeah.
Yeah. Besides Hyperbiotics, you've also started a skincare line, and you have 1 child and you're pregnant with another child, and you're living in Europe. Most of your team is in North America. You're running these 2 businesses. How on earth do you find the time for it all? How do you do it? And how do you stay sane?
Yeah, right. I know. Well, first of all, we have an amazing team, just an incredible team. We've really collected a team of people who have who we all are joined by our common mission and purpose. And it's incredible. And actually we have so many moms on our team, and we're all kind of juggling the same thing. But we're all part of a family where a company where family life is a priority. And so we all sort of have each other's back and pitch in. And it's, they say, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person, I feel like that with our team. We are just these, we do have a lot of moms who are juggling a lot of things, but we're passionate about it and we sort it out and we all band together and get it done. But for us, it's been really one step at a time. In the beginning, I was literally doing everything. And now because we have such a great team, I'm able to direct a lot of the moving components instead. And actually, my toddler is a very highly sensitive child. And I think that has to do with his temperament, but also being born so early and what he went through. But it's forced me to become a better delegator, because I am working a lot of days one-handed with a baby in the other hand. And as I've become a better delegator because I didn't have a choice, it's also allowed me to get to know and to experience the brilliance of the people that we work with in a way that I hadn't before because, I was doing it. But now we're just working together like an orchestra, and the result is amazing. It's so much better than if I were doing it myself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I think a lot of times, especially women, we feel like we need to do everything ourselves or we want to be, a lot of people have like control issues, right? They just want to be in control of everything, but you can't grow if you're the only one doing everything, or if everything, has to be double checked by you. You have to really delegate in order to grow. So no, that is a great, great answer. There's one question that I always ask everyone on here. In the quest to be healthier and happier, what is one thing or the one most important thing that you think people can do? What's one action they can take, maybe one habit, one thought that they can do to live a healthier and happier life?
I would say, don't let the reality of the people around you determine your reality. And for me, that really happened. My husband and I years ago in Indonesia, and that experience of being in such a foreign culture allowed us to break away from all of the cultural norms from where we came. And that experience has changed us forever, because we don't do things because that's the way it's done, or because that's the rule that applies to everyone around us. And because of that, we really are creating our world and our reality the way we want it to be. So, whatever that means, if it means don't let the diet of, just because everyone in your office eats this way, it doesn't mean you have to eat this way. Or just because everyone, parents this way, it doesn't mean you have to parent this way. And I think that has empowered us to just be much more in tune with our own voice and our own calling and follow our own path. That has led to a healthier and happier life for us. And I really think that it could do so for a lot of other people.
I love that. I think that's really great advice. And it is so cool to see you creating your own path in life. Even before Hyperbiotics, you were traveling, you decided you wanted to work and travel, which most people think, no, if you work, you have to be stuck in an office.
Right.
Or if you start a business, you all have to be in the same office.
Totally.
Right. So there's so many just boxes we put ourselves in, and never daring to go beyond that. But I think it's really amazing that you have dared to go beyond, and what an incredible life you have created, an incredible company as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. So you guys can find more about Hyperbiotics. It's hyperbiotics.com. I have a discount code as well. So first time buyers, you can use the code HyperMaria and you'll get 20% off your first order. Definitely their toothpaste and the dental probiotic is amazing, and their regular probiotics are also awesome. Go check it out. And is there anywhere else we should be looking for Hyperbiotics?
You can follow us on Instagram. We have some gorgeous things happening there.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed and got value from this episode, I'd be so grateful if you can take just 1 minute to leave an honest review on iTunes, as that will help us reach more people and get incredible guests on the show. To say thank you, email a screenshot of your review to info@mariamarlowe.com and we'll send you a free 3-day healthy eating sugar detox meal plan. After each and every episode, I encourage you to come say hi on Instagram @Maria Marlowe, that's MariaMarlowe, or in the private Happier and Healthier podcast group on Facebook. In both of these places, we can continue the conversation about today's episode, so come and share what you think. If you want more, you can also head to mariamarlowe.com, where you'll find tons of healthy recipes, meal plans, and resources to help you live your healthiest and happiest life. Lastly, if there's someone you know who'd enjoy this podcast, make their day, and mine, and send it to them now. Until next time, don't forget, health and happiness are a choice. Our thoughts become our reality, so make sure you're thinking up a masterpiece.